Welcome back to The Future in Mind. I'm Izzy.
And I'm Clarissa. And today we're diving into how Gen Z is reshaping sports fandom.
Because if you think fandom today is just about watching games, Gen Z would disagree.
Exactly. And this season, we're exploring different superpowers that are shaping how Gen Z shows up in the world. And today, we're looking at how sports unlock superpowers around connection, identity, and participation.
And the scale of the shift really matters. About 1/3 of Gen Z are sports fans, roughly 15 million in the US, and they're increasingly multicultural, making them incredibly important for the future of sports.
And they don't just participate, they influence. Gen Z drives purchasing decisions and cultural relevance, which means how they engage with sports isn't just changing fandom, it's reshaping the entire industry. What's interesting is that the why behind sports hasn't changed as much as we might expect. These are still core human drivers, or you could even think of them as superpowers that sports unlock. According to Culturati's latest report on Gen Z in sports, Engaging Gen Z Through the Power of Sports 2.0, Gen Z still turns to sports for connection at 86%, pride at 83%, and entertainment at 74%.
And beyond that, sports also activate something deeper. They give people a way to express emotion, build identity, and decompress, with nearly 80% saying sports help them express emotions and support well-being.
But where things are shifting is how and when they engage. Gen Z is showing up more selectively. Fewer are watching full games, and more are tuning in for playoffs, high stakes moments, and key narratives.
So, fandom is becoming more about when it matters most, not necessarily being there for everything. At the same time, they're not just watching, they're participating. And that participation is almost like a superpower, where fans aren't just consuming the game, they're shaping how they experience it. Gen Z engages with sports across multiple touchpoints. 78% watch games, 59% follow on social media, 58% attend live events, and 56% engage through sports video games.
And that participation is evolving into something more interactive, with gamification, real time engagement, and community driven experiences becoming part of the fan journey. We're also seeing the rise of more personalized fandom, where people are tracking stats, following players, and curating their own experience. It's almost like a superpower of self expression, where fandom becomes a reflection of who you are.
Which makes sense when you consider that more Gen Z fans now engage with content about sports than the games themselves, meaning they're curating their own experience around what matters to them.
So when you put it all together, fandom today looks very different. Still collective and emotional, but also selective and moment driven, more participatory and gamified, and increasingly personalized. All of which points to a new kind of fan, one that's leveraging these different superpowers to shape their own experience.
In other words, it's not just our team anymore. It's my game, my metrics. And to help us unpack all of this, we're joined by someone who's been at the intersection of sports, storytelling, and culture, Martha Soto, founder of Empatize Studio and former VP of on-air sports talent management and development at TelevisaUnivision. Martha has worked across global events like the Olympics, World Cup, Super Bowl, and Copa America, shaping how sports connect with audiences across markets and cultures. Martha, we're so excited to have you here.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, and also I love to chat about this. So I'm very happy to be here.
Martha, you've been part of some of the biggest global sporting moments, experiences that bring people together at scale. When you think about those moments, how have you seen sports unlock something powerful in people, whether that's connection, pride, or a sense of belonging?
Well, I will never forget my first event was Copa America Centenario. Imagine that event at Univision, it almost reached 2.9 million viewers across all 32 matches, the highest in history at that point, of course, 2016. But what it really stuck with me wasn't that number, wasn't the reach that we had at Univision at that point. It was that in the control room where the people manages all the screens and what you will see on TV, I could even feel the passion of the team managing a game or a finale, and the passion, the emotion, the connection, the pride that the game represents. it was crazy. I mean, even when the team has to work, they feel the passion inside. Also, when I was lucky to be at the final of the World Cup in Qatar 2022, and to see the full stadium with mostly Argentinian people, the level of passion, crying, the kid hugging their dads, I don't know, friends, whole families together, because remember that there was no alcohol in the stadium, so it was not that effect on people because of the crying. It was the passionate togetherness and unity that you see in the fans. So that for me has been one of the moments that I will never forget, about how people just unite and collectively share these moments.
So, sort of building on that, when brands show up in those moments and they have that opportunity to sort of tap into that same collective energy, that passion, right? So, what have you seen in your career when brands successfully unlock that collective superpower versus when they show up as just sponsors, for example?
I think that it's huge, no? When a sponsor buys just a logo placement, and a brand that unlocks that energy becomes part of that ritual, no? And more in sports. I remember we did a campaign when I used to work at advertising in Sachi and Sachi. We did this My Tide campaign, where we share, that's my tide, that's part of my routine, that's part of the job that I do, and that immediately creates an emotional resonance. No, it's just not the product aspects, no, that Thai contains X and Y that we clean. It was more towards the emotional aspect of how Latinas uses the product. So I think
Mm.
that's key. And one of the smartest campaign that I have seen, for example, I remember long time ago with the Droga 5 advertising agency and JC, the Decoded with Bling, where kind of JC gave the people the chance to be in different parts of location of the world as part of his release of his album, and they use Bing at that point, imagine, not Google, to find them. So I think that that's a different type of how the brand integrates with the consumer. And recently, what Spotify does with the Spotify Wrap, I think it's perfect, because it's just running ads with a personalized data that they have, and that turns into a campaign coming from the people. So that for me, it's one of the smartest thing of brands right now, how they embrace the content creation of the people and brings it to life. And it's not just a logo. I mean, awareness is key, but being part of a cultural movement, it just goes to the roof.
We're seeing fandom expand beyond the game itself into experiences, platforms, and different types of interactions. So, how have you seen sports give people a greater sense of agency, where they're not just consuming, but actively engaging in the experience?
Now, when I started at TelevisaUnivision, I mean, the TV is like the grandpa, no, of the media. But we didn't have so many platforms right now. One of the things that for me is giving the power to people and agency to people. It's the example of Kings League with Gerald Piqué. He gives away. It's a new category. I'm not saying that the soccer has to follow the rules, but he created a new full category of how the new generations want to experience soccer or football. So he is not just he's giving the chances to the people to decide on the rules, on the color of the grass. Instead of being green grass, you choose black grass. Do you want like halftime of 15 minutes or to 3 minutes because it takes too long? And for me, that's the best example of how fans don't just watch the sport, but also they design them. I think that's key. And personal experience, working at TelevisaUnivision, we always try to find former players to join us and grab also the audience and the community that they built into the TV. There has been always this discussion of the digital or the traditional media, who brings what and how do you measure that. But when we talk to specifically Layun, which I admire, I admire a lot Miguel. He was saying, Marta, I'm happy to join the TV, but I also want you to help me with the rights to have maybe a game of America in Liga MX in my own channel. I want to start building this community and create this content for the people and get immediate feedback either into TikTok or any of the platforms. And for me, it was tough because we wanted him to be on TV, but he's pushing. He was pushing us at that point to be where the people are right now, at least the young generations, right? To be with him, and he is succeeding with that. He is getting more and more games, even with the Liga Femenil as well. So the community he has built is crazy. The engagement that he has in his own Instagram, and he keeps feeding the community, and also the community is feeding his channel. So I think that that's the best agency that you could give to the people. I think that more now than ever, well, with these campaigns that we have seen in the World Cup, the usage of top media, former players, and regular fans, I think that's the opportunity for regular fans to come up and create something. Oh, and this is an amazing example. There is this social media creator in Argentina that just chose one player from New Zealand to say that it was the least followed or the least famous soccer player for the World Cup. And he engaged all his audience to vote for him and follow him to make him the most engaging or the most famous soccer player in the World Cup. And the guy had 4,000 followers. Now I think he has more than 4 million followers. So for me, is that giving again, like almost Piqué did, like giving the power to the people, and the people will see the result of that almost immediately. And for me, in sports, that example, it's wow, and it has been on the news, providing that power to the people.
So you mentioned like he's trying to sort of get in touch with like the younger generation by going to TikTok, by going online, right? So when we think about brands sort of trying to connect with Gen Z, how can they create experiences that unlock that same superpower of participation in a way that feels natural and not forced?
Listen, this for me is key because the younger generations, or at least Gen Z, they smell the BS like that, right? I think that they are the sharpest generation. They smell when something is forced all the way. If I feel it, that I am not certainly a Gen Z, I wish. But if I feel it, they extremely sense it like this. Being a Hispanic and now like knowing that Gen Z, it's almost, I don't know, like 70% of Hispanic sports fans at least are Gen Z or millennial. That is huge, with all this consumption in social media. Uh, for example, one of the new, I learned this in a Harvard BAMS reunion that I had. We saw a case study about the NCAA Women's Basketball Championship that grew almost 350% in the last year. And that's the present. And I think that brands getting brands providing value make people feel seen and listened. That for me is one of the best things to build community. I was on a panel with Michelle Poller, which now she talks about the fears and everything, and now she's turning the heads into the community and abundance leadership. And she mentioned that in order to build a community, and the community to feel to really build the community, it's not just brands putting their logo and get a bunch of influencers with expensive items and giveaways. You have to provide value to the community, like Spotify did. I think that that's the best example. They provide value, the people felt listened and viewed. I'm honoring your sense of flavor and the music that you love, and I'm portraying that as a campaign. What better example than that for exactly what Michelle Poller is mentioning? So that for me is one of the key things that brand should be doing. Either get along with influencers or with big names, either artists or actresses, I don't know, big stars that are really connecting with the audience in a truthful way.
We're also seeing sports engagement going beyond teams to people being invested at the player level. So, what makes a player or personality resonate in a way that allows fans to see themselves in them or connect on a deeper level?
No, that for me is key. I was managing almost 70 on-air talents when I was at TelevisaUnivision. And one of the things that I used to tell them is just be authentic, because the trust right now, and I have been listening to trust all the way from brands to big celebrities. I think that that's the key to have this audience connection and have more influence with these big names. With and again, I'm gonna quote here Anita Elvers, who is the teacher in this Harvard BEMS course that we took. She talks a lot about now talent today are becoming the company. David Beckham, for example, Beyonce, and this Mr. Beast, which is a huge influencer. I think is the number one. How the talent is becoming a company, meaning that maybe Mr. Beast is creating this content, but it's also having his brand of snacks for kids, and they start like growing. And yes, I think that people feel this connection with the person that it's in front of all these creations such as Beckham, Beyonce, Messi. And one of the things that we have seen this in the recent World Cup commercials, all talent, it like full of talent with all these brands that are putting I don't know how much money towards these spots, but Lego, Pepsi, Lay's, like all these brands are taking advantage of the community that is generating all these big media players. But for sure, for me, authenticity and being vulnerable, it's key to connect with the audiences. And that I kept saying to my talent, you have to connect, you have to engage. It's not easy because you have to be on social media all the time, but that's how you connect with the people too.
So, from your experience developing talent, how have you seen sports help young people unlock a kind of superpower when it comes to expressing who they are, both on and off the field?
So for me, sports it's a new, not a new world, but when I entered sports, I wasn't a fan of sports. And I joined because of the passion that I saw on the people and on the team. And with with my experience, what I have seen is the power that the sport has with the community in a very local level. When you see kids, I think that the best example is the growth on women in soccer, the level of empowerment, confidence that these girls are now having, and seeing more athletes like the WNBA that I was mentioning, the growth, and that even in soccer as well, that brands are uh, putting their money in this. I think that has been something that sports is changing in kids and the young talent, to see more people, like women, and new sports as well, with the flag football, for example, or with
Mm,
Diana. uh,
yeah.
and now a lot of kids want to play flag football. It's gonna be part of the Olympics. So I think that as a sports, even for me, I wasn't even super fan of sports, and looking at the passion, the unity that creates sports, and that everybody unites us in World Cup. You want to be part of that. You want to be
Mm,
part in the school, because the sports is it's just contagious. I think it's key for even brands, for families, for anyone to join it, because it gets contagious. It's very cool.
mhm.
You worked across different markets and platforms. How have you seen sports evolve as something that lives across multiple spaces instead of just one experience?
Well, I think that since the social media, it's all over. I think that nowadays, making just, for example, a 30-second TikTok or 3-hour show on TV is not enough. You have to be everywhere. You have to be in all platforms with different message. I used to tell my teams, it's the same soul that we have with different expressions. The level of expansion now with AI, that you can do an amazing TV spot, but now people have the chance to do it with AI. I just saw that in the Mexican presentation of the new players, that the Soccer Federation of Mexico, they did this amazing spot, but also there was another one created by AI, and you have to embrace those opportunities. And from the platform level to the schools, and what you see in I live in Miami, and I see the amount of clinics that have growth of soccer and different type of sports. I think it's a huge opportunity. One of the only ones beyond the concerts that are live, and you cannot just record and watch later, because it doesn't have the same flavor.
Mhm.
So I think that that's another huge opportunity in sports, and how people live that in different ways. And even now, it's sports, like the fashion people coming to sports. The one example that I saw, and with the years, Ibrahim, the Twitch guy from Spain, he started at Twitch, and now he can fill a huge stadium of people. Um, he started in Twitch. So for me, that's the growth that you're seeing in the market, how people are um, embracing sports in all different platforms, all different ways. I think that it's crazy, the amount of opportunity that it's out there.
So thinking about all these different platforms, right? All these different ways to reach people. And when brands are trying to connect with Gen Z, how do they show up consistently across these platforms without losing authenticity?
I will never forget every time that we develop a campaign for Procter& Gamble. They always used to tell us, we have to be clear on the attributes that we want to own. And for me, since that time, it was a long time ago, it keeps to be true to maintain at least the same values of the brand in every platform. It doesn't mean it's the same content on every single platform, but I think that maintaining the values in all different platforms, it was the Gen Z will smell as bold or as truthful, no, to be authentic. So I think that that's key. I work a lot with the Hispanic market, and that's another thing. It's not just a translation of strategy English to Spanish. It's to really understand the culture, to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to embrace what your consumers are doing, embrace their voices. And I will get back to the importance of building community now more than ever with the growth of AI. The non-iPhone experiences are growing like crazy since people want to connect and to feel and again being seen, being listened, and create value for the consumer, building communities. I think that's it. Is that authenticity and maintaining your values as a brand.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Part of what I do right now with Empathize Studio is a bit exactly that, how empathy with the audience and the brand can help you to grow exponentially, putting yourself in the shoes of the consumer and walk with them. I think that it's key, and I have seen it with different brands.
Martha, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such an insightful conversation. It really brings to life how fandom is evolving and how much it's being shaped not just by technology, but by culture, identity, and experience. I think Martha brought up a great point that we've heard time and time again. My generation is really looking for authenticity, whether that's how brands show up and make sporting events feel like something so much deeper than a game, or in the personalities that we look up to within our favorite sports.
Definitely. I also like thinking about how sports is really bringing people together in big ways these days. From the NBA Finals to the World Cup, it feels like there's this collective effervescence in the air that I think a lot of us are benefiting from.
Oh yeah, I can see that for sure. Thank you all for tuning into this episode. We hope it helped you understand the power of sports and how Gen Z is evolving participation and engagement into their own superpower. Take care and keep the future in mind.